Hello. Today I will be talking about queer theory and intersectionality. The theory will be applied to a pop culture figure that some of you will be familiar with. Before we dive into the theory, it is important to identify some key terms that will be used during the course of this presentation and some terms that are just important to know. Heteronormativity is the belief that heterosexuality is the standard and norm and what is socially acceptable to be. In this, conventional gender roles are emphasized as the correct way to live and identify. Cissexual, cisgendered, is when an individual's biological sex corresponds with their gender identity. Cisnormality is assuming that all individuals are cissexual, cisgendered. Binary is when there are only two options. It can be either or, it is black or it is white. The world has tried to tell us that a binary is the best way for everyone to identify, but recently, people have thrown out the social binary and are now beginning to see that identity is a spectrum and it can be fluid and change. Now that we have gotten some of the key terms out of the way, let's talk about queer theory and some history. So, what is queer theory? Queer theory examines the nature of sexuality and gender through the lens of theory. The goal is to deconstruct what is socially acceptable and normal, essentially demonstrating that gender and sexuality is fluid and breaking down the social binaries that we as a society have held on to for so long. Now, time for some quick history. The term queer is a reclaimed word from the LGBTQ plus community. The word originally means strange or peculiar, and these words were used to describe the community. But reclaiming the word has brought a new sense of freedom and power to the community. Queer theory was used by Gloria Anzaldúa and by fellow scholars informally in the 1990s, meaning that queer theory technically did not exist in the way that we know it today. The term queer theory influenced French philosophers such as Michel Foucault to view sexuality as a social construct and began his rejection of the heteronormative society in the 1990s. In 2003, David Halperin writes The Normalization of Queer Theory. He details the journey of how the theory came to be. He states that the term began as a joke, but was soon coined by Teresa de L'Ortiz, who used the term for the first queer theory conference in the 1990s. Soon after this, the term was legitimized and used in academia by scholars. Now that we have discussed the surface level of queer theory, we now must understand what intersectionality is and how intersectionality can be found in almost all of us. Think of intersectionality as the crossroads of your identity. Intersectionality is the idea that we can have multiple identities that overlap, such as race, ethnicity, gender, class, age, and culture. The term intersectionality was created by Black feminist Professor Kimberly Williams Crenshaw in 1989. Essentially, we are not limited by one identity. So, using myself as an example, my identity is not only my identity as a woman, but a Mexican American woman. There's no binary when it comes to intersectionality. My identity is not my identity as a woman or being Mexican American, but rather my identity as a Mexican American woman. I wanted to include this quote by Kimberly Crenshaw so that a better understanding is gained of what intersectionality is. In an interview with Columbia Law School, Crenshaw was asked, quote, "You originally coined the term intersectionality to describe bias and violence against Black women, but it's become more widely used for LGBTQ issues, among others. Is that a misunderstanding of intersectionality?" Crenshaw responded by saying, quote, "Intersectionality is a lens through which you can see where power comes and collides, where it interlocks and intersects. It's not simply that there's a race problem here, a gender problem here, and a class or LGBTQ problem here. There are many, many times that framework erases what happens to people who are subject to all of these things." Time notes how in 1991, Crenshaw writes an article titled Mapping the Margins. In this, Time states how Crenshaw, quote, "explained how people who are both women and people of color are marginalized by discourses that are shaped to respond to one identity or the other rather than both, meaning that an individual can be oppressed as a woman and because of their race, not just one or the other. It is important for individuals to recognize their privilege that comes with their identities, that it is important for individuals to recognize that their identities come with a privilege. So some examples of intersecting identities is someone who identifies as a cis Asian woman, disabled white lesbian, straight white man, or a Black trans man. An example of a queer celebrity with intersecting identities would be Lil Nas X, who identifies as a gay Black man. Lil Nas X, whose real name is Montero, came out as gay in June of 2019 during the release of his hit single Old Town Road. Montero identifies as a rapper as well as a pop star. In an interview with Billboard, he talks about how he does not feel accepted within the rap community and how hard it is to work with many artists, as many do not want to work with him because of his sexuality. He says, quote, "But these are communities that I am a part of, whether people would like it or not. This is something that I wanted to do because not my entire album is rap. There are rap albums on my track. There are rap tracks on my album. I am a rapper, I am a pop star, I am a gay artist, and I belong in these places." It's no secret that Montero's intersecting identities have caused him some grief as he breaks the heteronormative binaries in the rap community. The norms of what a man should be are rigid, and individuals on social media don't see him fitting in with the norms of what a man should be, leading to a lot of online hate and online bullying. Growing up, Montero notes how his family was never accepting of the LGBTQ plus community. In an interview with BuzzFeed, Montero states how, quote, "Growing up in the Atlanta area, I saw a lot of microaggressions towards homosexuality. Little things like going into an IHOP and hearing one of your family members say, 'Look at those,' insert slur, to two people eating, or just small statements like, 'Boys don't cry.' Living in the hood, not being super into sports, and then having to go outside and pretend that I was." Montero's identity as a Black man was intersecting with his sexual identity and the heteronormative norms. In the same interview with BuzzFeed, he says that, quote, "Mentally, it's really draining and straining sometimes. The pressure of living your entire life knowing the identity of what a rapper is supposed to be and what rappers are supposed to do, and going out there in front of all these people, it's terrifying." As he continues to break down the walls within the rap community, he says, quote, "People always say, go to where you're accepted and stuff like that. But you can't always go to where you're accepted. You've got to break down those walls and say, this is my space now too." As a Black gay male rap artist, Lil Nas X continues to break down barriers and walls to make way for a more inclusive community. Now that we are at the end of the presentation, I think it's important to reflect on our own identities. Some questions to reflect on after this. What part of your identity is salient to you? Does your identity come with a privilege? If so, what privilege does it bring? What are your identities? Who are you? Thank you for listening.